It's no secret that I'm a massive fan of the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance is a handheld which truly revolutionized portable gaming. It first released in 2001, and the GBA wasn't just another iteration of Nintendo's portable formula, it represented a quantum leap from the 8-bit Game Boy era into the true 32-bit era of the GBA. 24 years later, I think it's time to break down and discuss everything that there is to know about the Game Boy Advance, and why it is the crown jewel of the golden age of portable gaming. The GBA's origin story traces back to 1993 when ARM Holdings began courting Nintendo with revolutionary processor designs. By 1996, this collaboration between the two companies had evolved into Project Atlantis. This was an attempt to create a 32-bit handheld that would eclipse everything else on the market. Atlantis promised the impossible. This was a 30-hour battery life, a large color screen, and processing power that rivaled home consoles. Early prototypes supposedly ran a mysterious game which was called Mario's Castle, though this title vanished into Nintendo's vaults, never to resurface publicly. The project was destined for greatness until manufacturing costs had intervened and proved the console to be too costly, and the hardware at the time was proving to be too bulky, which contradicted Nintendo's philosophy of portability. Then Pokemon came along and changed everything. The franchise's explosive success in 1996 had breathed new life into the aging Game Boy, forcing Nintendo to shelve Project Atlantis indefinitely. But the company didn't abandon their 32-bit dreams, they'd simply learned patience. When development on Project Atlantis resumed in 1999, the advanced Game Boy inherited Atlantis' ARM processor architecture, while embracing a radically different design philosophy. French designer Gwenel Nicolas revolutionized the handheld form factor as he pioneered the landscape orientation for handheld gaming. His curved, ergonomic design wasn't just aesthetically pleasing, it was functionally superior as it placed controls naturally within thumb reach while accommodating the widest screen aspect ratio. This had transformed the Game Boy from a vertical block into a sleek modern gaming device. The ARM 7 TDMI processor represented Nintendo's boldest architectural gamble since the Famicom, as they were delivering 16.78 MHz of pure 32-bit performance. This was a generational leap that dwarfed all of the competition at the time. Now, this clock speed will only tell you part of the story, as Nintendo's engineers created an ingenious memory hierarchy that maximized performance within strict power constraints. The GBA system used 3 distinct memory pools. The first was 32 kilobytes of lightning-fast internal work RAM, which was directly connected to the ARM processor, then 256 kilobytes of external DRAM for general storage, and lastly 96 kilobytes of dedicated video RAM for graphics rendering. This architecture demanded a lot of precision from developers who learned to optimize code across multiple memory types in order to extract maximum performance from the console. The real magic lay in the Game Boy Advance's 6 graphics modes. Each were tailored for specific visual styles. Modes 0 to 2 represented traditional tile-based rendering, enabling the lush sprite work that defined classics like Metroid Fusion and Castlevania. Modes 3 to 5 introduced bitmap rendering, which was essentially allowing developers to plot pixels directly to a frame buffer, enabling primitive 3D engines that seemed impossible on a handheld. And this was implemented within the world map of Legacy Goku 2, as you can see in this example, as you're flying through the world map in this 3D environment. While Sony's PlayStation required extensive hardware acceleration for 3D graphics, the Game Boy Advance developers achieved smooth 3D racing in V-Rally 3 through pure software rendering. The system's 3-stage instruction pipeline had allowed simultaneous fetching, decoding, and execution of operations. This was a level of parallel processing that wasn't even a standard in handhelds until years later. The Game Boy Advance has one of the greatest game libraries out of any other handheld. We had original exclusives on the GBA which showcased the hardware's unique capabilities, and Nintendo also established new franchises which would endure for decades to come. WarioWare pioneered the concept of microgames, and they proved that innovation trumped over better graphics. The frantic 5-second challenges of WarioWare felt revolutionary on a handheld, creating gameplay which perfectly suited portable sessions. Then you have titles like Golden Sun, which demonstrated that complicated JRPGs could also thrive on the GBA, featuring dialogue dialogue trees and puzzle mechanics that rivaled console experiences. Most remarkably, Advance Wars introduced Western audiences to intelligent systems tactical mastery, spawning a passionate fanbase that persists even to this day. The second major pillar for the game library of the GBA was enhanced SNES ports, like Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2, which compressed Nintendo's 16-bit masterpiece onto the 2.9-inch screen of the GBA without sacrificing its essential character. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was also ported over to the GBA, and it maintained every single aspect of the original game, which made it so legendary. There were also experimental titles on the GBA which pushed the boundaries of the handheld in ways that seemed impossible on such modest hardware. Metroid Fusion created genuine tension through atmospheric sound design and claustrophobic level architecture. There was also the Castlevania trilogy, Circle of the Moon, Harmony of Dissonance, and Aria of Sorrow. Each explored different aspects of the Metroidvania formula, with Aria achieving near perfection through its soul-collecting mechanic. These games truly elevated the Game Boy Advance into a powerhouse. The original GBA's greatest triumph was also its most glaring weakness. This was of course that beautiful vibrant screen that nobody could actually see. Nintendo had decided to forego backlighting, and this was pretty comical. We had gorgeous games rendered nearly invisible by the system's reflective LCD screen. The visibility issue on the original GBA had created an entire back industry of third-party solutions like worm lights, magnifying glasses, and even dedicated modders who were installing backlit LCDs into their Game Boys. Nintendo's response to people not being able to see their Game Boy Advance screens had come in the form of the Game Boy Advance SP, a new clamshell redesign which addressed nearly every complaint about the original GBA. The SP's frontlit AGS-1 model finally made games visible in any lighting condition, while its rechargeable battery eliminated the need for endlessly recycling through AA batteries. The form factor of the SP felt revolutionary. It was compact enough for any pocket, yet comfortable enough for extended play sessions to hold. But Nintendo wasn't finished iterating on the SP yet, as the AGS-101 revision introduced true backlighting technology, creating the definitive GBA experience. Colors popped with unprecedented vibrancy, and viewing angles had improved dramatically. Unfortunately, the AGS-101 model had seen limited distribution, so now it's become more of a holy grail for collectors. Then you have the Game Boy Micro, which was Nintendo's final Game Boy Advance experiment. It was a jewel-like device that prioritized style over functionality. Its removable faceplates and premium construction felt luxurious, but the loss of backwards compatibility with original Game Boy games and the awkward ergonomics for adult hands had limited its appeal. There were some pretty unique game cartridges created for the GBA. These were specialized cartridges that transformed individual games into unique hardware experiences that couldn't be replicated elsewhere. There was Hideo Kojima's Boktai series, which demonstrated this innovation through integrated solar sensors that turned sunlight into gameplay mechanics. Players literally needed to venture outdoors to power their weapons, creating an unprecedented connection between the virtual world and the physical environment. The concept sounds gimmicky in retrospect, but Boktai's execution proved that hardware innovation could enhance rather than distract from compelling game design. There was also the WarioWare Twisted cartridge, which embedded gyroscopic sensors directly into the cartridge, enabling motion controls, and this was years before the Wii made them mainstream. The precision of these sensors had allowed for nuanced gameplay that felt responsive and intuitive. It was a remarkable achievement for 2004 technology. There was also Drill Dozer that incorporated rumble functionality into the cartridge, which provided tactile feedback for its drilling mechanics, making players feel every impact and breakthrough in the game. The multimedia capabilities of the GBA were also expanded via Game Boy Advanced video cartridges, which contained compressed episodes of popular shows, transforming the handheld into a primitive video player. There was also the Japan-exclusive PlayYan accessory, which went further, adding MP3 playback and video streaming from SD cards, while also providing superior audio quality through its dedicated headphone jack. Long before online gaming became popular, the GBA pioneered handheld networking through its robust connectivity features, and this was via the Link cable, which enabled up to 4 players to share gaming experiences using just a single cartridge. This was a technological achievement that seems miraculous even to this day. Mario Kart Super Circuit demonstrated the system's networking abilities by delivering full multiplayer racing with AI opponents filling empty slots. F-Zero Maximum maximum velocity pushed this concept further, creating high-speed competitions that felt completely native to the GBA hardware. The GameCube connectivity features also opened entirely new gameplay possibilities. Four Swords Adventures transformed individual GBA systems into private screens for each player, enabling asymmetric gameplay that wouldn't reappear until the Wii U generation. Then you had the island visits of Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles cooperative dungeons, and Zelda The Wind Waker's special features, which all demonstrated how handhelds like the GBA could enhance rather than compete with home consoles. There was also the e-reader accessory that pushed connectivity into completely uncharted territory by scanning physical cards to unlock digital content. Pokemon cards revealed new battles and characters, while NES games could be played directly from card data. Super Mario Advanced 4 received dozens of new levels through e-reader cards, which essentially provided DLC years before the concept had become a standard. There were even failed innovations which provided some promise, like the mobile adapter GB, which attempted to connect Game Boys to cellular networks for online play. This was a concept that wouldn't succeed until the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection, which became a standard on the Nintendo DS. The GBA literally was the final home for 2D gaming. While console developers had chased polygon counts, GBA creators were perfecting pixel art to levels that remain unsurpassed even to this day. The Game Boy Advance also helped to introduce Western audiences to Fire Emblem, a tactical RPG series that had thrived in Japan for over a decade. This localization success paved the way for Fire Emblem's eventual mainstream acceptance and integration into the Super Smash Bros. Roster. The homebrew community also embraced the GBA with unprecedented enthusiasm as they developed flash cartridges and programming tools which enabled independent game creation. And there are even ROM hacks for the GBA Pokemon games which are being created even to this day. Nintendo eventually had decided to prioritize the Nintendo DS, and it represented a sound business strategy, while at the same time they cut short one of gaming's most promising platforms. The announcement of Sony's PlayStation Portable created competitive pressure for Nintendo, which had forced their hand, as the Nintendo DS's dual screen innovation provided a compelling counter-narrative to Sony's multimedia approach with the PSP. Nintendo publicly insisted that the DS was a third pillar alongside Game Boy and console systems, but this had fooled nobody. Everybody knew that the DS was clearly the replacement for the GBA. The transition from the GBA to the DS happened swiftly. By 2005, all major publishers had shifted their efforts to develop games for the DS, leaving the GBA with increasingly sparse software support. Nintendo's own first-party releases had dwindled to a trickle, with gems like Drill Dozer and Rhythm Tengoku receiving minimal promotion despite their exceptional quality for the GBA. Most frustratingly, the Game Boy Advance had just reached technological maturity when support for the handheld had ended. Developers had mastered the hardware's intricacies, creating increasingly sophisticated games that maximized every processor cycle and memory byte. The system's final releases give us titles like Mother 3 and Final Fantasy VI Advance. This demonstrated capabilities that seemed impossible during the launch period of the GBA. The DS's backwards compatibility provided some comfort though, as it effectively relegated GBA games to legacy status rather than celebrating their continued relevance into the DS era. This premature retirement for the GBA robbed the platform of the extended lifecycle that could have established it as the definitive handheld gaming system. 24 years after it had debuted, the GBA's influence still persists even to this day. Its emphasis on tight, focused gameplay experiences directly inspired the indie gaming revolution, where small teams create polished 2D experiences which rival AAA productions. The modern retro gaming renaissance has elevated GBA titles to near mythical status among collectors and enthusiasts, and there's a dedicated community of modders who are bringing their old systems back to life by installing new backlit screens, rechargeable batteries into their consoles, as well as changing their charger ports to USB-C ports for their Game Boy Advance SPs and even the original Game Boy Advance. People are selling these modified Game Boy Advance systems for hundreds of dollars online. This isn't just nostalgia, but recognition of the genuine artistic achievement which was accomplished with the GBA. Whether if you're playing on the original hardware or you're emulating the Game Boy Advance, in my opinion, it is one of the greatest handheld consoles ever to have been created. But we have now reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What are your fond memories with the Game Boy Advance? I remember getting it back in the day and playing it in school with the link cable, trading Pokemon with my friends. It was genuinely an insane time to be alive when the GBA was at its peak. But yeah, let me know all of your own experiences and memories of the GBA. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this one, and I cannot wait to see you in my next video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.